In this video, we have the Flysky. This is the INR4-GYB. Oh, it's a mouthful. This is the receiver that also has a gyro in it. This is a viewer request, specific viewer request for me to get this, pair it to the Flysky Noble controller, put it in a drift car, and see how it does. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Troy. This is Roadside RC. You'll tend to find me bashing or crawling or drifting or racing, plus doing product review videos and how-tos. Seriously, viewer request. So many of you reached out and said, Troy, can you please test this receiver and gyro 2-in-1 combo to see how good it is? Yes, we can. Let's get it out of the box and get this started. Let's see what is in here itself. The receiver and big antenna on it. Instruction manual, which will be very handy for us. Some extra connections here. We'll have to see what that is for. Quality control paperwork, some information about binding it, quick connection to the Flysky social medias, and some fun little stickers. I like this one. Look at that. On this car here, you can see actually everything that we're going to be replacing. So this huge receiver that's sitting here for this car, plus this gyro, are all going to go away for just this one little box. Now I am going to, since this is just a test, I'm going to temporarily just attach it on top of this other receiver, and that way all the wires that I need to connect in should be able to connect quite easily. To do so, I'm just going to use some simple double-sided tape and stick it right on top of there. To note that the orientation of the marks here on the receiver itself versus the channels, I believe, is slightly misleading. Channel 1 is all the way in the very bottom here. 2 will click in just above it, and that's all it is. Because we're bypassing this other gyro, all of these other wires and everything and all that complication would just go away. Steering to channel 1, ESC to channel 2, done. Now the next thing we're going to have to do is bind the receiver to this controller. So I've gone ahead in here in the model, and I've actually made a new model in here for this vehicle. We're going to go in here to bind. Okay, so we're going to have to go to the enhanced RX, yes, and start bind. Binding. On the model itself, we're going to hold the bind button down while we turn the car on. Okay, holding that bind button, and there we go. It says bind successful. As with any time you put a new controller or receiver on a vehicle, you then have to calibrate the throttle and the brake to the vehicle, to that ESC. So I went ahead and did that. Now I'm not going to show that to you on here because that is ESC specific. You need to look in the manual for your ESC. Now the next thing up here I notice is if I turn right, it goes left, and if I turn left, it goes right. So we're going to come out into our main menu, and we are going to reverse the steering so that right is right and left is left. Alright, so as of right now, I have a car. I have a working car, but I have no working gyro. You can see that here. So now we need to jump into what it calls the SVC settings in order to get that working. In the main menu here, swipe once, look, there's SVC. It's right there. We can turn it on. There's a neutral calibration, there's a reverse, ESP, steering gain, throttle gain, priority, and gyroscope calibration. Let's start messing with some of this and see what happens. Now one thing before we get into the gyro settings, what it wants us to do is it wants us to set the steering endpoints. So I'm going to come in here, and actually what I did is just artificially take both my left and right steering endpoints down to something just ridiculous. And then that way the steering barely moves. And then what I can do is continue to tweak it over there. There we go. And it wants you to also set a trim as well. So if you need to center your wheels at all, fortunately mine are very centered. So if you need to center them at all, it wants you to go ahead and do that as well before you come back over here and get into the SVC settings, because it wants you to do a neutral calibration. We're going to tell it that everything is at a neutral state, and there it goes. Now the next setting on here is a reverse, and one of the things that you'll always see, you got to make sure that your gyro works. So if I pick up the car and I move it toward me, the wheel should counter steer towards me, and if you look, they go the other way. So we're going to have to come in here and reverse it. Hey, that's the way I want it to work. That's correct. this is a big deal and a lot of people make a mistake with this. The next thing we're going to do is go all the way down here to the bottom, and that is gyroscope calibration. And since this is new, we're going to go ahead and calibrate it. Everything needs to stay exactly still, and then it'll come back and do that. Alright, we have a couple other modes in here. We have ESP, we have steering gain, we have throttle gain, and we have priority. All of those are going to be tuning functions. So at this point, we need to drive it and see how it goes. The steering gain, which is basically the gyro gain on here, is at 50%. The throttle gain's at 0, which means it will not interfere with the throttle at all. It's only going to have about a 50% gyro gain. Let's do some laps here in the garage and see what it looks like. Alright, I'm a little nervous. We'll see how this goes. Ha! Well, I guess I shouldn't be very nervous, should I? Look at that. Straight out of the box, 50% gain. Wow, that is impressive. Look at that. No way, that feels great. That is wild. Alright, now let's play with some stuff. So ESP mode, instead of normal, we'll go to lock and we'll see what that feels like. Whoa, that's no good. Yep, nope. It does, that is funky. I don't know what's going on with that, but we do not want to do that. So priority, we can then set priority. We're going to go all the way up to 50%. It was at 0. I'm going to go to 50 and see what that feels like. It's interesting, it feels a little less stable. Let's go all the way up to like 100 and see what happens. Whoa! Yeah, that's no good. Okay, back down to 0. Factory setting is 0. Much better with that one. Throttle gain, I don't want it to do anything there, so we're just going to leave that alone. So gyro, let's crank it up and let's see at what level do we start getting some shaking. So I went from 50% to 75%. Oh, and you can feel the difference. Car is just a little bit number. Oh gosh, yeah. That would take some getting used to. At 75%, I'm having to throw a lot of steering at it in order to get it to do what I want and not have the gyro take over. But you know, the good thing is I'm not seeing any gyro wobble. And the cool thing about that is one of the things I see new folks do a lot is they steer too much. So it kind of dampens that out for them a little bit. We're going to go up to 90 and see what happens. Ooh, yeah. So now I'm having to really steer a lot more than I would expect. Starting to get a little gyro wobble, but at 90% it's not bad at all. This is paired with the RevD RSST servo. But yeah, oh wow, this is interesting. So at 90% gain, very minimal wobble going through that RevD servo. And I have to turn it a lot. I have to really work the steering wheel over here compared to what I'm used to. Yokomo folks probably would hate this because, so here I'm making a left-hand corner. Wheels are turning to the right, but yet I am turning heavily to the left. So yeah, I bet some folks would really not like that. But I bet new folks, they might really like that. Crank that gyro gain up. They have to do a lot more work with the steering. Interesting. Okay, let's go the other way. So it was at 50 when we started. Let's go down to like a 30 and see what happens. Okay, well that feels much more like you're just running 30% gyro gain. Now I'm having to steer into the slide a lot more. Yeah, so now I'm steering into the slide a lot more, but that's okay. Still very controllable. Oh, I'm really liking this. I am really liking this. I really regret not having tried one of these receiver and gyro 2-in-1 combos before. Oosh. Interesting. So it's funny, I really like it where it was at the 50%. Man, this thing out of the box, it's like they tuned it for me. Very neutral feeling. We're back at that 50% gyro gain. At 0, we should have 0 gyro gain, and yep, that's pretty much what that feels like. I really enjoy testing different controllers and different gyros in my drift cars, and this GYD 550 gyro from Futaba is my favorite, hands down. Typically that means I'm going to recommend something like the Futaba 4PM to folks as a radio because it pairs nicely with it, but so do a lot of other more budget-oriented controllers. These Flysky Nobles are really nice, really nice controllers. And then the fact that you can get this receiver for a fraction of the cost of the gyro and it works well, that's really important, folks. That really helps folks get into the hobby at a cheaper price, and I am all about that. That is exciting. But one thing now is in here in the instructions, it says there's a whole advanced manual. I can't see anywhere on here where the advanced is. I think I need to do a firmware update to my controller. I've now literally spent hours trying to get this controller to upgrade firmware, and for some reason, it's just not playing right. Cannot get it to upgrade. This is an older Noble. I've had it for many years at this point. For whatever reason, can't get it to take the new firmware to hopefully unlock those new features that it shows that we could potentially have under the SVC, under the gyro function. But I'm actually not too sad about it because so far this is driving really good. Overall, this gyro and receiver combo in this vehicle has absolutely exceeded my expectations. And this is really big deal for the whole RC drift community because the less components and the cheaper that you can get them and still get your car around the track is the more that we can help get new folks started into this hobby that we know and love. So I am really excited about this. You know, so many times I see people, maybe they already have the Flysky Noble controller because it's very commonly suggested, and now they're asking for what, you know, $80, $100, $150 gyro should they be buying, and to tell them that, hey, guess what, instead you can buy the controller without the receiver in it and get this $45 receiver and be making laps around your local track door to door with your friends, just that cheap. That is big. That is huge. I always am a big fan of any time that we can help people save some money. So very excited about it. If you have the Noble and you want to try this receiver, I will have a link in the video description below to where you could actually buy the receiver directly from A-Main Hobbies. So please go down there and check that out if you're interested. If you're looking for any other tech help, drifting stuff specific or others, there's a tech help playlist that'll be popping up over here to your right. And I hope to see you in that video. Thank you and goodbye.